this. When you know a man that has nothing is giving you money, it really feels like something. All right. Let's get into this, shall we? I think the big comedy of the news of the week is what I want to start with, and that would be Andrew Schulz versus the ShxtsnGigs podcast. Why? I don't know. Why would you name Casey? You're a bit of an oddball. You might have an answer to this.
Hey,
Why would you name a podcast ShxtsnGigs if you have to put you have to misspell the title and make it more difficult for people to find?
Mike, I'm going to answer your question with a question. What color are these gentlemen?
Okay, I guess.
Because
Is it just a thing in a community that I don't understand?
Yes,
Is that what you're saying?
yes.
Oh,
the
so it's
X is
cool.
off. You've heard of Malcolm X, right? Yes, it's been used in the community
I don't
forever.
think that
to
seems.
replace.
I don't think that has anything to do with this.
No, it's Malcolm F for Malcolm Fuck, and they just put X in there. You didn't know that? God, you don't know culture, baby. No, I don't know why. Why would you? Every time I write this thing in these goddamn things, I have to triple check it. So, guys, you're not doing yourself any help with the branding there because I have to look at this thing every time.
It's annoying, but to their credit, they have like 2 million followers or 2 million subscribers on YouTube. So their show is blown up, I guess. And they went on the Flagrent podcast. I almost said Flagrant 2. It's not what it's called anymore. They went on the Flagrant podcast. And I guess they did like an American tour. They did a bunch of podcasts over here. And Andrew Schulz was one of them, which is a great opportunity for them. Like I don't listen to Andrew Schulz's podcast, but I know who Andrew is. I don't know who the fuck these people are. So I assume that's great exposure for them. New audience, all that kind of stuff. The things you look for when you're going to do a podcast tour. So Andrew provided them a platform. I guess they joked around. Schultz's show isn't necessarily for me. I know they talk about a lot of news topics, and I see a lot of people criticize the laughing that happens on that show and everything. I don't know. It seems like guys having a good time. It doesn't really bother me. Not necessarily for me, but I like Andrew Schulz a lot. I have a great deal of respect for him. And I think you're going to see why based on how he handles this. Basically, the topic we're discussing, you're watching one man handle it perfectly and a couple other guys flail and possibly like ruin their reputation. So it'll be interesting to watch, but we haven't had a good cancel culture story in a while. I think after, Shane Gillis and Joe Rogan and a lot of these guys laid down the groundwork of how you should handle it, I think everyone kind of gets it. And there are no more massive national news stories about like a podcaster getting canceled for jokes. But what does still happen from time to time is audiences eating themselves alive. Like there's just one rogue person that is, I don't know, jealous of a show or wants to take them down for whatever reason. And that flared up here. So 2 months ago, these guys from the ShxtsnGigs podcast over in Britain, Great Britain, they were doing Andrew Schulz's show, and these were some of the jokes that popped up on that program.
Yeah,
Black girlfriend effect.
Yeah,
You're
into that.
Yeah. She came in.
What's the black girlfriend? They just come in and start fighting?
Nah, bro. You guys don't know about the black girlfriend effect.
She
just.
Wait, what is the black girlfriend effect? This is
you man don't know
just
about
glow up the other culture.
Yeah, so you'll see a guy who's had a black girlfriend. All of a sudden, he's got buzz cut, like clean shape up.
Glows
up, bro.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that.
They shave their hair because they start losing it. Because they're so stressed being around this black girl complaining about shit all the fucking time. That's why they gotta shave their hair.
Nah, bro. White guys with black girlfriends,
they grow a beard
because
because there's more cushion when they get slapped the fuck out of.
That's hilarious.
I think.
Hold on, wait a second. I can't see well. Who said that's hilarious?
One of the ShxtsnGigs guys.
That's stunning to me based on what we're going to play. I can't believe that. It's interesting that they interjected with that's hilarious. That's very interesting. Just keep that in mind as we go along here.
Black girlfriend effect. It might be a protective instinct, bro.
You think?
Protective.
Do you guys have you ever had black girlfriends?
Yeah.
Have you ever had white girls?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. What's your favorite?
We love them all.
Yeah.
Oh really?
We love them all.
Yeah.
That means white.
Yo, who gets?
That means what?
Hey, let me get the translation.
Kendrick fans, get him!
We love them all.
That's right.
So I wasn't sure if I found the right clip. because to me that seems like just nothing. Like it seems almost boring. Like there are a couple mild, like where you breathe out your that's not bad. But like I didn't find anything wildly offensive. Or, I don't know. That seems like a nothing clip to me. I don't know. You're a lib, Casey. Anything stand out to you as insane there?
I'm a JFK lib, first of all. But what strikes me is where they're from, right? So they're from a place with no protected speech from the government. And so I think they're sort of walking in these waters, not understanding what's going on. And Andrew Schulz, like I gained a new respect for him because he's just like, no, this is how it is. Boom, free American style humor. And I think it's just they don't know how to respond. And that's what I look at it as. I look at
well, that's clear as we're about to play. They do not know how to respond. So. Yes. So I guess they have a very large like black female following. I guess a lot of their audience is like black.
Samesies.
As we do here on the Dynamite Project, and I know a lot of the day lords are powerful black women.
Yes,
Kamala Harris has come out and said she's a day lord, I believe.
It's Kamala.
I'm sorry, whatever. Don't send Daniel Alexander after me. So I don't know. They have a different audience than Andrew Schulz, put it that way. And 2 months later, so this podcast came out 2 months ago. Then last weekend, someone posts that clip, and I saw it was all over like TikTok, and people are coming after these guys. So in their world, they have no choice but to respond. That's what's interesting now, is it's not, CNN covers something. It's just like something pops up in your world, and you feel it's the biggest thing out there because that's what your whole Twitter algorithm is, or TikTok, or whatever social media you're big on. Like, that's all you see is people responding and commenting on your stuff. How could you? How could you go on Andrew Schultz's show and do this? That white nationalist, Andrew Schulz, who has an Indian guy, a black guy. I think every race is on Andrew's show. And yet they take it as some like affront, some racist podcast or something. So their audience is up in arms, and they have to respond like a good podcaster would. They have no choice but to respond. So their first show after this goes crazy, they start the program. This is how they start. This is the first things out of their mouths on the ShxtsnGigs podcast.
Guys,
Girls.
right, before we get into today's episode, quick PSA, quick acknowledgement. So, if you know, you know. If you don't, that's fine. But we just wanted to address something that's happening at the minute. This past weekend, there's been a couple of clips going around from when we did a session on the Flagrant podcast while we were on our US tour. And there were a few jokes made that were incredibly inappropriate.
This sounds like, hold on, already. This sounds like a guy who had pictures come out where he's with a 17-year-old, where it's borderline. Like in some states, technically it's legal, but like it's not a crazy crime that he's being accused of, but it is severely frowned upon in most places. And this guy has to respond to it.
Yeah, they look like a team that just lost in overtime. They got their heads down. They're staring at the ground.
Why? I said this about Schulz a few weeks ago, remember? Why whenever, if the word controversy is attached to it, why do people feel they have to make a video where it's like, I just want to address this head on and come out and say that I am not a racist. Despite what you guys may now think. It's like if someone watched that clip from Andrew Schultz's show that we played and changed their opinion entirely of you, do you really want them in your life? Like, is that someone you want around and you want to be listening to and seeking counsel from on how to behave? Like, really? If they shaped their belief in you on that 1-minute clip from Andrew Schultz's podcast, like, that's crazy. And what you are now doing is getting on your knees and begging them, please like me. Please still like me. And like I've done this before, and you have to kind of learn to grow out of it, where like if you have never gotten tweets before or comments or anything, and this is all new to you, then the first one you get, like percentage-wise, that's astronomical. If no strangers ever commented on something you're doing before, and then you get one comment, you're like, holy shit, I better listen to this person because it's the only person giving me feedback. Now, they have, like I said, 2 million subscribers or whatever it is. So I imagine they're getting a tremendous amount of feedback. And this is the first time they're in hot water. And they do not know how the fuck to handle it, clearly.
It's this or double down. It seems to be the only choices in podcasting.
Well,
Either
that's what people
double-
think, but that's not true. And
No, I agree.
I always bring up Shane Gillis. I feel bad that I do it every single time, but I just think he's the best example of a guy that just kept his head down, kept doing what he was doing, and is now the biggest comic in the country because of it.
Great point.
Bro,
Incredibly.
one specifically pertaining to black women.
Yep.
And in the clip, Andrew was making a joke.
Raping someone. Because that's the only way this tone makes sense, right? Like, clearly there's footage we didn't see where Andrew is forcing himself on a woman and saying, if you motherfuckers tell anyone, I will slit your throats. Of course that's the video they're talking about. No, it's the one where Andrew made a joke about a black lady.
Like a not even offensive C-level offense. Like I didn't even rise up in me. No offense taken.
It didn't register to me as even like raunchy talk, you know?
No. It was more bonding talk. Like, hey, right? I understand your culture. And they're like, God damn, you do. And so I'm like, everyone walks away from that. High five. Good job.
And we'll get to, and Andrew addresses this, so we'll get to like their audience and everything. But if you have an audience that's that sensitive, that's going to find something like that offensive, know where you're going. Do not do Andrew Schultz's podcast. Like, that's insane.
They got giant neck tattoos and they're scared of Sally on the internet. What is wrong with these guys?
We should stop talking here because we are only about 30 seconds into this endless apology.
It's so long.
I'm not even going to get into specifics.
Why would you? Why get into specifics? That'd be crazy to address this head on. You should
Black
just
ladies be like. Oh wait, I can't do that.
Just pussyfoot around it totally. Talk about what an atrocity it is and how many people were injured in the process of this joke. And just don't actually address what it is. Why would you?
Frankly, racist joke.
Yeah.
And we were laughing at it.
Hold on,
And
go back a bit. Frankly, a racist joke. Not a racial joke. Quite frankly, Andrew Schulz is a racist who was joking.
Well, that mustache is racist, but he seems to be awful nice.
making a joke. I'm not even going to get into specifics. Making a frankly racist joke.
Yeah.
And we were
be
laughing
frank
at it.
about it.
And to give there's first of all, before we get into specifics or anything like that, obviously there's just literally no excuse. There is no excuse.
Agreed.
Hold on, I've got one. You were on a comedy show. How about that? How about you were on a comedy show? You were laughing. You said, that's hilarious. How about it being hilarious is the excuse?
It was on this thing called film for everyone to see.
There's literally no excuse. Like, I would say, rape and pedophilia would be the crimes that murder, I think there's an excuse for. Absolutely. I can't think of that, rape and pedophilia, the only things I can think of where you could say there's never an excuse for that. Joking, however, I can't imagine not being able to come up with an excuse for why. Well, and here's the thing, the ShxtsnGigs guys didn't make the joke in question. They're in trouble with their audience for laughing.
Yeah.
That's the type of controversy we haven't seen in a while, where that's pre-Trump almost, where you'd get someone in trouble for laughing at a joke that someone else made.
I also think there's an element here of some money being lost because these guys are talking money's affected, right? So I think it's that maybe they partnered with lady type advertising stuff, sensitive advertising stuff, who heard that and was on the phone immediately with them, you guys ruined our brand, and now they're this walk back has to look so sincere because we sell lady bags on our fucking site. You know?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know their advertisers, but what I understand is they have a large female audience. So maybe
spenders.
Maybe
advertisers call those spenders.
I think when a company gets into bed with Andrew Schulz, for example, or Barstool Sports or Rogan or whatever, you have an idea of what you're getting. I guess maybe advertisers that get into bed with the ShxtsnGigs podcast, any amount of controversy might scare them. Because, like I said, we haven't seen this in a little while. It's cooled down over the last couple of years, maybe. But like, I know from like what happened with Kirk at WEI that advertisers will just like, they don't care about context really. They'll just go, "Oh God, we got 3 emails. We better just cancel all ties to this person." Like they panic. So that's got to be what it is, I guess. And like I said, these guys are new to success. So one advertiser calling them and being like, "What the fuck is this?" probably petrifies them, which I do get, I suppose.
I mean, there was 90 meetings on the X in their name with this advertising company. Like they got through that, and then you guys do this.
Right.
And fight or flight is a real thing. Like it is, yeah. Fight or flight is a real thing, and it's so not easy to say, but
Wait, a fight or flight?
Fight or flight is a real thing. And it's when you're being confronted.
I didn't see a tiger anywhere.
When someone attacks you, someone or something attacks you, do you run the other way or do you run into the fight? Fight or flight. Not when Andrew Schulz makes a racial joke and Akash Singh tags it. Do you sprint out of the room and cry? I don't think that's what fight or flight is.
I can't wait till the stories of Blind Mike at Skankfest come out of him punching people and running away. Because comedy,
enough,
right?
Lewis. That's enough.
Comedy, fight or flight. I love it.
Listen to what they think. Like what they probably should have done is this.
excuse.
Agreed.
And fight or flight is a real thing. Like it is, yeah. Fight or flight is a real thing, and it's so not easy to say, but when you're in those situations, you look at it through a lens of like, bro, if it was me, I promise you, I'll stand up, I'll kick them cameras down, I would smack homeboy in the face, I would say this, I'll do that. But when you're in there,
I was thinking when I didn't say it's crazy. They're kind of like reading my mind because I didn't say it out loud. But I was thinking when we were listening to the clip, I was like, all right, Casey, fast forward to the part where they destroy the studio and assault Andrew Schulz. Because that's the logical next step, of course.
They knocked over the camera because they were DEFCON laughing like they were at the DEFCON comedy jam.
They should create thousands of dollars of destruction to a high-end podcast studio, and then physically attack the host.
you're in shock.
You're in shock, and all you want to do is move on.
Yeah, bro, move on is the fucking word, bro. All you want to do is fucking
Have you seen Swordfish? Anyway.
move on. Just move.
It's like a tick now. Anyone mentions 9/11, even in public, even if I don't know them, I ask them if they've seen Swordfish.
As you should.
Guys, do it.
It was on all our minds that day.
Halle Berry's tits, man.
On to the next thing. Just move on to the next thing.
There's
and
so
like
many
we had to say a
times.
few times, bro, just move on.
Just move
just
on.
move
Literally
on.
So many different topics.
Whoa. I don't know all the fancy English translations, you know? I know they have all kinds. We speak the same language, but do we really? They have all kinds of wacky terms over there that I don't understand here. Because that's hilarious. When the settlers came over from England, did we completely twist that into meaning that is so funny that I want to hear more from you? I find that hilarious. But in England, does it mean like, Andrew, you are 2 seconds away from me kicking you in the stomach? Does that's hilarious mean something? Because they're talking like they were sitting in the fetal position. Andrew, can you please move on? I'm just not comfortable with this, Andrew. Please, no more black lady jokes. I can't take it, Andrew. But what they did outwardly, that of course was inside their head. What they did outwardly is go, Andrew, that's hilarious. So either these guys are the biggest cowards on the planet, or they're lying right now.
The cowardice is strong. But Paul Revere wasn't actually warning us about the British. He was running from a joke. Hey,
something hilarious is coming.
Move on.
Yeah.
And it's not even like about pity laughs or anything, but we just wanted to
Get out of that situation.
Literally get out of that situation, keep the ball rolling. And we thought it was going to be more of like a bros chat, but it ended up being something that's
ended
not
up
meant to
being
be.
something that's like really, really hurt people that look to us for support and look to us to feel protected and protected.
Andrew, Jesus.
This is the main thing that I wanted to discuss is that it is our duty to protect you guys.
Facts.
Nope.
It is definitely
Unless, hold on. Unless, and I know, like I said, they're relatively new to success, so I don't know if they kept their day jobs as police officers and medics, but it is not their duty to protect us or to aid us in any way. Their duty is to, I assume, entertain us. I don't know a ton about the podcast, but I don't seek mental counsel from the podcasts I listen to. Like, I left Kirk's show 4 years ago and went into a program that helped me kind of cope with my disability, and I was in therapy 3 times a week. And what I didn't do is seek out the Are You Garbage guys to be like, guys, I'm going through a tough time right now. Do you have, is it garbage to brush your teeth in the shower? Because I'm really going through it right now.
I'm wondering how many people you're raising right now, Daddy Blind Mike, who are listening to your podcast, that we are protecting.
Yeah, guys, just so you know, I will not protect you. If there is an intruder in your home, do not call me, Craig, Casey Day, David Collins, Electra. Call the police.
Although I'd love to see you chase an intruder around my house. That would be fun.
Not cool to be in that situation. And again, not be the ones to stand up and kick the cameras down. And we fucked it on that occasion.
We did.
It's not going to happen again. And it's about being human. It's about realizing that you don't know what you're prepared for. You don't know how to prepare for something
you don't know about.
We fucked it is more offensive than anything that was said by Andrew.
we don't know how to prepare. How about listening to the podcast? Like, I wasn't crazy familiar with Lauren Compton's show before I went and did it. And I did something crazy on the plane ride down. Well, that's none of your business. On the plane ride down, I listened to 5 or 6 episodes. They're quick. You can just fly through them. So when I went in there, I had a pretty solid idea of what we'd be talking about. Maybe not the exact questions or anything, but like I had a pretty good idea of what the type of conversation would be. I didn't walk in there, and when Lauren said, like, so what was your first date with your girlfriend like? I did not kick the camera over and assault her, as these men have suggested you should do when you're uncomfortable on a podcast.
Don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And once it's happened one time, you're like, fuck, all right.
You learn from your mistakes, and that's literally
Bro.
learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, we fucked it, and we're sorry.
We definitely do apologize.
It's, for me, like, it's one of them ones where you don't realize that, like, for one, when you're part of a community, you don't realize that you can hurt your own community.
Especially
when you're not. Yeah.
The raw iron, the pain they must suffer with. He didn't know he could hurt you guys.
It's tough being Jesus.
Unintentionally,
for real.
And also, on top of that, it was so crazy that, like, the narrative that's been spun about how we feel about our community, the irony of the fact that whilst the whole reason we're in that country was to just show how much we love our community and show how much we love our support.
Panicking about, by the way, is people, I guess, are commenting on their videos and stuff saying, like, oh, they tricked us, and they're actually like Andrew Schulz. They're racists, and it's like, aren't they? Are both guys black? I know one is like Trinidadian.
Mm-hmm.
They're men of color, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So what even is the accusation? That they're racist or what?
That I think it's that they didn't support black women.
Right, but
because the joke was against black women and their fan base is black women. Oh, they got hate mail.
So in that world, like if Andrew Schulz was on their podcast or in that world and made that joke, they should have said, like, "Hey, you knock it off." Like that would have been the appropriate. Hey, that's enough, Andrew. Like, no one has any feel for how that would completely kill the momentum of the podcast. Where you don't like. I guess if Andrew was spouting some like real crazy racist shit, but like he's fucking around, they were like, "Oh, that's funny." I gotta be honest. Even if they didn't find it funny and they laughed, what's the big deal? You know what I mean? Like, you're just being polite, honestly.
Right. And what is the one character trait we know about these gentlemen? Cowardice. So if Andrew Schulz went to their show and did that exact same thing, cowardice. They would laugh and do the exact same thing. Exactly.
And by the way, here's what's also important to note. This apology is coming 2 months later.
That's fucked up.
If the next, I'm serious. Like, if the next day when they came back from England and they did the podcast and they were like, I gotta be like hand up, guys. You know, we did Schultz's podcast. It got a little more like racy than I expected, and he was making jokes. Like, we were laughing, but like I was a little uncomfortable. So like, just know that going in, whatever. Then I would be like, oh, whatever. Like, these are guys. They don't fit in that world. It's not for them. But like, they're just being honest about how they felt. I mean, they kind of seem like pussies, but who gives a shit? You know, it's not my style podcast, whatever. They waited until someone called. So this is not an apology. This is you called us out for something and we don't know how to handle that. They're not sorry, even remotely. They didn't even know they did anything until you guys pointed it out.
And how much time we spent at the shows and just like getting to know people and just like understanding our community better and just like making friends and making bonds and showing love, and they're showing love. And this whole 6-week trip was just about showing how much we love our community and how much our community show out for us. And then to have that exact same trip be the reason that we're having to have this conversation now. But at the end of the day, mistakes make you a better person.
Mistakes do make you a better person.
You're not born a person.
Who's this other guy, by the way? Is there an echo? What's happening?
It's his hype man. It's his flavor.
Mistakes make you a better person. I said it first.
Will Chamberlain,
you jackass.
Will Chamberlain said you learn more by losing. Yes.
You can tell they don't believe in this because the one guy is just like horse shit is falling out of his mouth, and the other guy is picking it up and dropping it again. Like, the other guy has no thought on this. Mistakes make you a better person. Mistakes make you a better person. Yes, we both agree. We both think it.
Person, and yeah, we don't condone. We don't appease that behavior. We don't rate it. And we don't want you guys to think that we were sat in that room rating what's going on.
We hold our hands up, we apologize, you learn from your mistakes, and we hope we don't let our community down again.
Mike, you can't see this, but he held his hands up. So he is sorry. He did. He means it.
Oh, he physically held his hands up.
He held his hands up. He said, hands up. Sorry, guys.
I got to be honest. I thought he meant metaphorically. So I appreciate that he was actually going through the action of holding his hands up. I mean, this seems like a sketch. Like, this feels so ridiculous.
Ultimately, we do this for you guys. Like,
you guys are all we have, man.
You guys are literally all we have. You guys have taken
us
to
this.
By the
way. That's what it really
to this level.
Is you're afraid, like, if the YouTube chat, and don't you dare do it as a bit, you cocksuckers. If the YouTube chat revolts on me right now and tries to cancel me, I'd be, oh no. So like, I guess that's really what it is they're just panicking because they saw a lot. It's probably the first thing in their podcast history that sparked a negative reaction like this. So they really are just panicking. I do almost feel bad for them in a way, but they're just handling it so poorly.
Level, and we don't want to let you guys down going forward and anymore. So, you know.
Yeah, but anyway.
Yeah, so okay. That is those guys.
So that's someone handling a controversy so incredibly poorly that it almost seems fake. Now what we're going to see is a guy handling a controversy perfectly. A guy that should basically teach a class on it, because there are people that have tried to come after Andrew Schulz. Like, Schulz is a guy that I think was very innovative, kind of laid the groundwork for how a lot of comics are finding success now. I wouldn't say I'm like the biggest fan of his like, if Andrew Schulz was in Boston, I would go if like tickets were available, but I wouldn't like race to be one of the first ones to buy them. So like, that's my level of Andrew Schulz fandom. I like him as a comic, but as kind of a trailblazer in comedy, in a sense, like, I have a great deal of respect for him, and I think that is on display here with how he handled this flaring up. Oh, so this is them, by the way, watching the video of what we just watched. Basically, they broke the whole video down, and this is them getting into that.
specifics or anything like that. Obviously, there's just literally no excuse.
Pause.
There is no excuse.
Agreed.
Pause.
There's no excuse.
There's
eh?
no fucking excuse. Al.
And
Can you pause? No excuse for that. I just want to take in the beginning of it. There's no excuse for jokes. There is never an excuse for making jokes.
But can we try?
I'm not going to ever make an excuse for being a comedian. There's never an excuse for making jokes.
Yeah.
Okay? That is a real statement said by a man. I just want that to be clear. There is never an excuse for making jokes with the boys. Go on. Let's take it serious. Look at how sad he is over on the left.
real thing. Like it is, yeah. Fight or flight is a real thing, and it's
He is.
so
Do you
not
see how?
easy to say,
We should
but
go back to
when you're in the
that. We
situation-
should go back because he's going through it right now. Look how he practiced this. I'm gonna pick my skin on my finger.
guys.
Come on, no. I need you to watch it. Look, he's biting his bottom lip.
I think it would literally be, people misuse this word a lot, but if I'm not mistaken, I think it would be like an example of the definition of irony is to say to a comedian, hey, there's no excuse for jokes. It's literally his job. It's how he earns a living. And you're saying there's no excuse for jokes. The excuse is he's on a podcast. It's like just off the cuff. And he was making jokes that, by the way, you were laughing at. So I think that would be the excuse. But it is but Andrew continues to handle it.
Or that he
very
will
well.
never make an excuse for his jokes. He will just say it was a joke. He's not going to
Right.
make an excuse for it and be like, oh, by the way, I got to step back.
Exactly.
Mortgage. That's his excuse. He has to pay his goddamn mortgage.
Yeah, but here's the excuse. Have you seen Madison Square Garden ticket sales?
Exactly.
Andrew Schulz plays fucking arenas.
Yep.
I've been there. I know what that's like.
Fight
When
or
you're just
flight.
having fun and laughing with the boys, and you're like, I just can't wait to move on from this. Don't you know that feeling when you experience the fight or flight and then you just laugh? Does that happen to you guys when your body is just being torn with the primal urge to either fight or flight, and instead you just go, ha ha ha? Do you guys ever have that feeling?
I feel like you're making an excuse for jokes.
I would never.
That sounds like what you're doing.
Hey, I would never excuse taking two things that have nothing to do with one another and then bring them together to make your friends laugh. I would never excuse that, Mark.
What if it has a good setup and a misdirection at the end?
You're enticing me.
there is no excuse, really. So yeah, this is what I'm talking. Like I talked about this a lot when we played that Schulz clip. Is like sometimes when something pops, and I realize they're totally different situations. Believe me.
But exactly the same.
The exact same situation happened.
Those guys took it like it was the Schulz situation. Though.
Well, right. That's my point. Is like you don't have to handle every controversy with that tone just because you've seen politicians that are under fire talk this way and get very serious in a way that they don't usually talk, and it's almost as if they're like, "Hey, gang, now you can tell how seriously I'm taking this and how much it means to me." And based on my tone, you now understand that I mean this apology because there's no way that someone that's faking it would talk in this sort of just stressed out and thoughtful tone. Like no one would talk like that. Whereas Andrew, in a way could have, because I don't know if he got shit for this, but Andrew could have overreacted and been like, guys, I didn't want them to get in trouble. Like Andrew could have had that reaction where it's, I am not a racist or whatever the fuck he would say. But I think Andrew knows that is actually just a turnoff to your audience because now they don't think the people that were coming after ShxtsnGigs think that of them no matter what. They didn't watch that apology and go, oh, good. Okay, good. They're not racists. I thought for a minute when I watched the other clip, I thought they were racists. But now when I watched the apology, now I know they're not racists. Didn't change anyone's mind. It didn't help. The people that put out that clip and were like, can you believe this from the ShxtsnGigs podcast? They're thirsting for blood. They just want to attack, whether it's they're jealous of you, they just hate your show and think you suck. They want to take you down. Whatever it is, whatever their excuse is, they just don't like you. Maybe it's even good natured, but they just do not like you. And they want to see you have to do something humiliating, like give the apology you gave. Andrew Schulz is a guy who has talked about that a lot, fully aware of it, and that's on display here in his response to it.
Empathy is what this is.
Yeah, so this is a little more serious in the sense that he's actually addressing them and kind of understands where they're coming from a little bit.
So here's the thing. Listen, I do have empathy for what they're going through. They're young into this content game.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is what happens with a lot of people who are like funny on the internet, but they're not comedians. Yeah. So they are still concerned about cancellation. I think comedians, we understand that being funny is saying inappropriate things. Yeah. Sometimes that thing that's inappropriate is something about you. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's about other people. Mm-hmm. But the nature of being funny is something inappropriate happening. Yeah. Right? And I think what they're doing, what they don't realize is because they're young in the game, and we've all went through this. It's like scary in the beginning. You really think you're going to be canceled. You're worried. I'm sure that they have, people that they have to take care of, and they're like, uh-oh, what if I have to go back and I have to get a regular job? Is it all over? I completely have empathy for that. I get that. What they don't realize is by apologizing, you're just amplifying it. Yeah. The people that are upset at this, the majority of them don't even listen to the podcast. A lot of them are probably resentful of your success. And they're like, why the fuck should these guys make all this money? And they're just like reacting to stupid videos on the internet and like telling stories.
They're just friends. I'm just friends.
Yeah, I'm just friends. Why can't I have millions of dollars like they have? So but they don't realize that. They really think it's their community. Your community still loves you. Your community still knows you. And if you actually have a community, like you say, which I do believe you do, they're not going to immediately throw you away because of one clip where you're laughing at a clear...
That I think, by the way, is the best point that he makes, that the audience is not going to just abandon them. Like, if people like them, they're not going to hear one clip and be like, well, I'll never listen to this And if they did, their loyalty and support was so tissue paper thin that they weren't actual fans to begin with. They listened to the podcast, and maybe they went to your live shows or whatever. And it's interesting because, like, these guys have the right perspective on it. Akash said he went to their live show, the ShxtsnGigs live show, and said it was everyone seemed to be having a great time. Like, it was a great experience. These guys know what they're doing. Like, they were complimentary of them, even after ShxtsnGigs threw these guys under the bus and flat out called them racists. And still, Andrew was able to give that perspective. Like, this response to me made me I wouldn't say respect Andrew Schulz more. It reinforced my respect of Andrew Schulz, because I think he's just a guy that handles things the right way and has a good perspective on stuff like this.
It made me a fan of Andrew Schulz, this whole scenario.
Yeah,
his periphery. Oh, he's funny sometimes, a clip here or there, but just him logicking out his comedy mind and how this happened. I became a fan, and so I listen to this stupid podcast now.
Yeah,
thanks a lot, asshole.
The criticism,
podcast.
I hear people shit on him and say like, "Oh, he's trying to be Rogan or whatever." I genuinely you hear it right there. I think he has a good perspective on a lot of this stuff and is genuinely insightful. And I think that was on display when responding to these fucking maniacs.
Learning moment.
But what you have done, and this is hopefully the learning moment, is that you have empowered those people that are trying to cancel you. Remember, the people trying to cancel you get off on you being canceled. You having to come out and apologize and bend to their whim and change the disposition of who you are. And it is a change, right? Because you had the ability to edit it out. You chose not to edit it out. Didn't mean anything to that. You only want to edit it, or you only want to talk about it now because of the negative reaction. If nobody reacted to it, you wouldn't go back and be like, we feel horrible and we have to protect our community and all this other bullshit you're saying.
That's the big point to me, is that if that clip never comes, if no one ever isolates that clip and questions them on it, they never say anything, right? Which makes it impossible. Which makes it impossible for that to be their real reaction. So therefore, who is buying their apology? Like, who is hearing that and going, oh, good, we called them out, but luckily, just by pure coincidence, they were so sorry that they were probably going to make this apology anyways. You know what I mean? Like, who is that fooling? Clearly, that's a response to you guys overreacting to the clip. That's them overreacting to your overreaction. That, to me, is the biggest phony part, that I don't understand who it appeases, who they're patting on the head with that apology. Like, you have to be a real fucking numbskull for that to satiate you, to be like, oh, okay, they aren't racists. And what's interesting is, like, when something like this happens, the evil guy is always, it's portrayed as the guy making the racist joke is the villain. So, like, in this case, it would be like Andrew Schulz is the bad guy who made these sweet boys laugh at terribly racist humor. Yet, look at the responses to this controversy. One is incredibly measured and empathetic and thoughtful and trying to help them. Like, Andrew's being, like, giving them advice. Whereas the other response is, those guys are racist. We don't want anything to do with them. We should have kicked over the cameras, which is crazy to me. But don't worry, guys. We will never associate with those pigs again. I don't know. I guess make your own judgment. But to me, it's pretty clear who the wrong one is in that situation. I was going to say evil again, but that seems harsh.
The learning lesson here is you do not apologize, because you're just going to empower these people who aren't even part of your community in the first place. You guys have built something with people who actually know you and care about you, and one thing that happens could never sway them, especially on a podcast where you're joking around. Like, it's ridiculous. That's a learning lesson.
And I think also when you're first going through that, you think about, oh, we have black female fans. I appreciate them so much. I think they must be so hurt by this. They're not hurt by this. You don't realize that. You start feeling empathy for people that don't feel bad, that weren't hurt. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, if you're thinking about all the black girls you see at the live shows, blah, blah, oh, those girls are probably so heartbroken. They think no, they don't.
Yeah, that's what's weird and starts to make you feel silly is you feel bad for something that isn't affecting the other person in the way that you think it's affecting them. You're like, oh, I made this person feel bad. That makes me feel bad in return. But in reality, it's just someone that wants to argue. You're engaging with someone that's just looking for a fight. And what they've chosen today is, oh, you guys are racist because you laughed at Schultz's joke. And you're like, oh, I'm so sorry. No, I'm not a racist. I'm sorry that offended you. But it didn't really bother them. They moved on with their day immediately. They didn't give it another thought. And you've obsessed over it now.
Go to blindmike.net for everything Blind Mike. Look at me. I did it. Kragers did it.